Hello and welcome back once again to the Single Malt Review. I promised you something with a bit more grunt last time, and I think we have manifestly provided here. If you haven't realised already, it is the latest Ardnamurchan Spirit, the AD 2018. And it is, much like the last one, kind of a hell of a whiskey, with just a few little differences. So Dave's got he's got the older bottle there.
So a brief recap for those who may not be in the know. Ardnamurchan is a distillery which has been set up by the owners of Adelphi, the phenomenal independent bottlers who have been for many years now picking the best and brightest individual casks of single malt whiskey mostly and bottling it for us lucky recipients. Indeed. They're now doing their own distilling and for the last few years putting out yearly incremental samples of the work in progress spirit. It's not yet whiskey, it's not yet reached that age, but we can try it and see how it's progressing. All matured in Oloroso and Pedro Jimenez casks at the... Is it Ardnamurchan? Is there castle?
The Ardnamurchan... No, that's Glen Borrodale is the castle and headquarters of the company. So, nice if you've got it. No, Ardnamurchan is the name of the distillery, which is out on the west coast of Scotland, on the Ardnamurchan Peninsula, which is, I think that's basically the most interesting thing there. Previously there was no interesting things there, except a lot of midges, but a beautiful distillery by all present accounts, and very much a distillery in which no expense has been spared, absolutely none. They have really. I mean, they do not mess around when it comes to whiskey. They if anyone knows what a whiskey should taste like, it would be the people at Adelphi, because boy have they bottled some cracking ones through the course of their company. So it's a real hands-on distillery. If you want to know more about it, then check out our review of the previous bottle, because we talk about the history of the company and the distillery, which I bolted onto the front of that episode. So you can catch up there, and I won't have to repeat myself this episode, and we won't get too cluttered. So this is interesting in that this is Ardnamurchan Spirit, because as Dave said, it wasn't whiskey because it's not quite old enough. This presumably is the last time we will see Ardnamurchan Spirit, because next year it will be Ardnamurchan Whisky if they release another work in progress.
Even this year, it's 2019.
Yeah, they should be.
It's going to turn 3 this year.
Their whiskey, their spirit should be turning to whiskey sort of just about now. You can almost sort of hear the magical jingle as it transitions from spirit to single malt Scotch whiskey, which they'll be tremendously happy about. They're probably having a bit of a party over there right now, and we will get straight into this whiskey, because that's you'll be wondering why we're delaying. We're delaying to bring you the official tasting notes, which Dave was having a read through.
Interesting comparisons. Like the 2017 Spirit bottled at 53.6% ABV, which is cask-strength. Yet the 2018 version, so a year older.
Yes, this one is 55.3.
So it's stronger. 55.5, was it?
55.3% ABV. So they're pretty similar, but
stronger.
A little stronger.
Some more less active casks.
Well, I think that's because they will have been able to use a few larger casks in this older whiskey, because they will have more time to mature. So they wouldn't have to rush it quite as much as that one with these tiny wee casks.
Exclusively Oloroso and Pedro Jimenez, I believe.
Yes, and exclusively first filled as well. Yeah. So it's a pretty.
And while Tim pours for 2018, I will regale you with the official tasting notes from the 2017 Spirit. Honey roasted nuts, Christmas spiced sultanas, baked apples, custard creams, licorice all sorts, nutmeg, rock salt, and smouldering driftwood.
So they're pretty out there, but you ain't heard nothing yet, because I believe it's probably Charles McLean who does these, and he was just getting started with those ones. Let's get a load of the ones for this bottle. In terms of my take, and you'll get our official tasting notes as we get further into the whiskey, I think these are quite similar drams we're dealing with here. They've been obviously from the same spirit, they're a very similar age, and they are aged in a very similar wood. So I think they're pretty analogous, really. However, tasting notes for this one, verbatim, earthy mango, which is presumably a mango that you have dropped. I don't know. I've had fruity mangoes. I haven't had an earthy mango, so who knows. Waxy orange peel. I think we can all get behind that one. with post-Manhattan glacé cherries. Glacé cherries?
So I guess if you Wicks in Manhattan have a glacé cherry as an adornment, you eat the garnish, that's what it's going to taste like.
I suppose you'd call that pretty jolly
that's quite specific, yeah,
is what I'd call that. But hey, anyway, black pepper. Here we go. There's a normal one. We can be behind that one. And our favourite, because this is so good, Distant Clyde Puffer Smoke. Yeah. Now,
Clyde Puffer is a coal-fired cargo ship. Was that right?
It is. It's a little like a coal-fired tug, which, as the name might suggest, goes up and down the River Clyde, which is a river that goes through Glasgow.
So that tasting note suggests not only can you taste which specific vessel this smoke is from, but also how far away it is. That is a degree of specificity I would not have anticipated.
Yeah, I don't know. I can only say that I am chuffed.
Yes,
I suppose, to make a pun really, really work for its time there. Take of that what you will. I won't make too much fun of them. Charles MacLean is a living treasure in the world of whisky. If he did, and I apologise if that wasn't Charlie's tasting notes there. I just think he does get very descriptive sometimes with the tasting notes. But
it's certainly evocative.
Anyway, we shall say no more, and we will give you our own note.
It is a stonking rich amber colour for such a young spirit.
Yeah. Well, keep in mind that whiskey takes on the majority of its colour in the first year of its maturation. So this looks pretty dark, but it's not a whiskey that's going to get much darker. This is sort of it's a pretty healthy colour. As
the PX cask will certainly impart a lot of colour quickly. Oh, that is a rich, spicy nose. Not as furiously fiery as you expect for something over 55%.
Yeah, it's not got a huge amount of prickle. It has been pretty intensively aged. This won't be particularly representative of their sort of production whiskey. Representative of the style, but this sort of AD, these sort of first look releases, they will have been from some of the smallest casks. They will be hurried along. They will be sort of kept up in the rafters. They will be moved along as fast as they possibly can to give us sort of a snapshot of what the matured whiskey might look like in the future. But I think when 10 years old rolls around and we get to try sort of the mass produced, not really mass produced, but the normal whiskey. I think it will be a bit different to this one, but time will tell how different it really is.
At last year's Dramfest, I had the great privilege of trying some of the single cask expressions of the Ardnamurchan spirit, and it was the contrast between these, like blended as it were, bottlings was stark. This amazing sheer variety, the diversity of spirit that's gone into these. It smells hot. It smells a degree of young wood coming through.
It's not masking its youth, and I don't think you really can when you're dealing with cask strength whiskey that is only 2 and a bit, or damn near 3, really.
Even officially whiskey, but getting there.
But getting over that, the really important thing to note is this is a not insignificantly peated whiskey. Peat is one of the primary components that comes through. I'm not sure what their peating levels are, but if this is representative of Ardnamurchan's sort of production spirit, then Ardnamurchan is going to be a peated whiskey. Yeah. Not a peat-dominated whiskey, but it is going to be a peated whiskey. Think Springbank.
No expert. I'm getting a degree of a sort of a mineral inland peat quality to it, not so much of the...
there isn't a particular... It's not a very twangy peat. There's not a lot of iodine going on in here. There is more of a... I guess you'd liken it more to Ardmore than necessarily Isla. I'm not sure what their source of peat is, but I'm sure they would tell you. They have a pretty good website these days where the information probably resides. It's a dry nose, which is not too typical for a fully sherry matured whiskey. This is certainly, like Glendronach, this ain't. It is not as sweet.
No.
Not a sweet whiskey in really any way. It's quite dry.
And while we may have had some merriment at the expense of the tasting notes, I am detecting a hint of what you could describe as distant coal smoke. It's just a whiff on the back. It's like the finish of the nose, if such a thing exists. It's like you're just smelling a hint of coal smoke from over the way.
You mentioned mineral, and that's... I, due to doing various jobs that involve coal, and the analysis thereof, I'm quite a connoisseur of coal smoke, and it is a very mineral smell. Yes. It's what you get if you crossed peat with that sort of more mineral, flinty kind of a stony, rocky smell.
Yeah.
That's kind of where it lands. So that's not surprising that.
But
That's
I grew up around miniature railways for reasons which would be too long to go into. But it's bringing back some memories there.
So at full strength, and that's pretty approachable for a 55% whiskey, for something that is more alcohol than it is water.
There are lashings of very strong orange rind flavours, a strong alcohol burn, some black and a little bit of jalapeno chili pepper. Rich marmalade.
This is where the sweetness comes out.
Yeah.
This is where it sort of starts to transform into a more slightly richer, slightly sweeter whiskey. And it's very, very oily as well. It's a whiskey with supreme amounts of body.
And a sharp, small but sharp hit of coal smoke on the finish. So again, the tasty notes are just shining through.
It gets smokier as it goes on. I would, to put this in sort of, to place this whiskey in the pantheon of whiskey flavours, it definitely has the most to do with Springbank. I'm not saying it's a Springbank clone, but in terms of whiskies that it is closest to, Springbank is definitely one of the inspirations. Springbank and a little bit of Kilkerran, which is a related distillery. In fact, that's not the name of the distillery, that's the name of the whiskey, which always throws me, but people know what Kilkerran is. That's a...
As with the 2017, though, I'm shaken by how readily approachable and drinkable this is, despite its immense strength and also its great youth. Normally, Scotch whisky this strong is a challenge, and one that this, something which is not even Scotch whisky yet, but is nearly there, should be basically borderline undrinkable straight out of the cask, but this is very drinkable.
Well, like I say, this has been massaged along. This is the chosen whiskey for the job, and it, I think, does it pretty well. But it would be remiss not to try it with a decent whack of water. And as a young and extremely strong whiskey, it can handle that water pretty well.
And the nose there has transformed into mature Speyside characters. Think a medium to old Glenfarclas. Lots of stewed fruit, tinned fruit, pears, pawpaws, peaches.
Still sherry matured, which of course Glenfarclas is. That's very much their style, but it is a bit more flowing, a bit riper, a bit crisper,
and has not clouded in the least, despite the generous slug of water out of there. It shows just how strong this was to be
strong, and it hasn't been probably in the wood long enough to take on a lot of the components that might make it cloud up.
Oh, so the oils and such seep out of the wood.
Some of those come out of the wood. You get a lot of them from the spirit. I would have actually expected a bit more cloud than we're seeing here, but it's a pretty warm day as well, so it's of course summer over here. We would look significantly shinier and sweetier, but I put the cooler on in a great show of foresight. I hope you can't hear it on the audio, but I'm sure you can't. It'll be fine.
Yes, we become very mellow and fruity on the nose.
I think on balance, this is a very, very different whiskey once you put water in, and that's really kind of what happens when you're dealing with cask strength whiskey.
There's that peaty minerality on the finish, but not nearly as sooty as it was before, not that same kind of coal smoke twang.
I think I prefer it with the water on this given day. On a warm day, as a summertime whiskey, I think with the water is definitely the way to go, because now suddenly it's crisp, it's refreshing, it's flowing, lively, vibrant. Whereas having it straight, that's more of your winter warmer than that one.
If this came from a Speyside distillery and they told me it was 10 years old, I would believe them. That is exactly the strength and the depth of character we got here with the addition of water. I think I prefer it straight up because of the greater breadth and the shocking contrast of the different, almost clashing flavours. But this way, it's, as you say, it's a really good, quaffable, enjoyable, sippable whiskey.
Now,
again, not actually whiskey, but
the real question here is it moving in the right direction? Is it getting better 1 year on? The scores we gave to the previous years, the 1700 AD, the 2017 AD, we gave that one an 88 and an 89 respectively. I think I was the 88, you were the 89, but those are both very high scores and quite consistent as well. So those are very much the scores to beat. And at least as far as I'm concerned, it has beaten it, but not by a great deal. It's gone up by 1 entire point for me. I am now the 89. Where do you rest? Where do you land with this one?
This may seem slightly fast score contrived, but I'm going to bring the score down 1 to an 88.
Wow.
This is, it's not doing as many new things. It is still complex, interesting, and definitely heading in a very unique direction. But it isn't as wildly transformative as the 2017 AD offering was.
Yeah, and it's probably a case of maybe slightly diminishing returns because you can only be amazed, once.
Yeah.
This is just as amazing as it was the last time, but we've already had that surprise.
Yeah, it's still an impressive and extremely unique expression of what's going to be Scotch whisky.
Yeah.
What is already a very potent spirit in its own right.
I think, assuming they keep releasing these next year when we're sitting down around about this time and we've got a bottle of Ardnamurchan single malt Scotch whisky on the table, that is going to be that'll be when the battle lines are really drawn. That won't be sneak peek territory anymore. That'll be real, guns out, balls on the table. That'll be whisky at that point. So that'll be really, really exciting to see. So do check back in maybe exactly 12 months for that one. Depends how consistent I am with the producing, I suppose. But in the meantime, this should be very available. It was shockingly available. In fact, I think our local specialist, who is the exception to a great many norms in terms of things we wouldn't normally have a hope of getting in New Zealand, but for a small whisky shop in the grand scheme of things, they got a hell of a lot of bottles. Everyone that wanted one could get one. I think you could probably go and get one right now if you wanted one. So Adelphi being fairly generous with the allocations of this one. So if you are interested, it'll be fairly easy to pick up, I think, depending on where you are in the world, and it's pretty affordable as well. It's the price you'd expect to pay for cask strength whisky, but it's certainly not. They're not creaming it off these ones. These are for sort of very enthusiastic people to have a window in what they're doing there, and I think they're priced very fairly for what you're getting. So do seek it out if you are remotely interested. If you too want to try the Earthy Mango and the Distant Clyde Puffer, really the best way to try it is first hand. Don't take our account for it. So that was the interesting one, as I've become prone to saying. Next time it's going to be something less interesting, but that's just how it goes sometimes in the world of whisky. We've got, I'm staring at something which is it's giving me some trepidation.
You're
but
I
think it might be time that we tried something beginning with Southern. Could go one of many ways. Wish us luck, Slanger.